All right, so it is Monday, and a few things are happening today, and that is in regards to the iPhone, the iPad, I believe Apple Watch, OS updates, big ones. So the new OSs are coming out. But today, we're not going to necessarily talk about that. We are going to talk about that tomorrow. We're going to come back and talk about the new features of the new OSs in the iPhone, iPad. We may do a video on the Apple Watch, etc. But today, we are looking really about iPhone 13 and whether or not this is something that you may want to upgrade, possibly depending on the phone that you're coming from. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit right now. So I've been perusing the internet for the last few days since the iPhone 13 was announced, and of course I was humming and hawing and trying to figure out whether or not I wanted to upgrade, and I ended up going and ordering an iPhone 13 Pro 128 gig, and there's a reason I chose that one. But we're gonna go through some of the features of the iPhone 13, and depending on the phone that you currently have now, these may be reasons for you to consider upgrading, and or maybe it's like, no, it's not, it's I don't need to. And little story before we get into it. Was out visiting my wife's parents last night, talking about the new iPhone, and she was like, "Yeah, we have iPhone 6Ss, 6Ss, yep." And I was like, "And?" She's like, "It does everything I need it to do." I'm like, "Cool, so you don't upgrade. There's other features that you will probably never use, so why spend the money on it?" Their only complaint was, "But our batteries don't do well anymore," which completely makes sense because it's a phone that's a lot of years old. So I was like, just go get a new battery. It costs you like $70 or so and you'll be good. So just realize if you have an old phone and it does everything you want, then it may be good. But also realize what some of the new features are, because a lot of people don't know what is in these new phones, which may be something that can benefit them. So there's a few good articles that I want to talk about or kind of use as reference because they were good in even like helping me. So number one here, it says you shouldn't upgrade if your only issue is battery life. Right? That's 100%, because they talked about marginal upgrades for battery. The iPhone mini, I think, was like 2.5 hours. The iPhone 13 was 1.5. The iPhone Pro was 1.5, and the Pro Max was 2.5, I believe. But depending on what kind of user you're going to get, if you can't get like a full day, adding an additional hour probably not going to get you a full day either. So you'll need to rely on some other kind of battery pack or something, or charging solution for you throughout the day. If it does get you a full day right now, then it doesn't matter if you're going to get an extra 2 hours. What it's not going to do is it's going to give you an additional day, so you don't have to charge it. So just kind of realize, like I had told my mother-in-law, father-in-law, you know what? Just get an updated battery. You should be good. You want something that looks radically different from your iPhone 12 they talk about. So iPhones, honestly, after the 10, in my opinion, the 10 is when they lost the home button. Remember the little home button on the front? And they went to Face ID. So a lot of people love it. I like Face ID. I would actually like them to implement Face ID and Touch ID. Give me one of the buttons on the side to have Touch ID. We know it can be done because it's on the iPad mini, the new one, as well as on the iPad Air. So it would be nice to have both, because, and this is a bonus of the old iPhones, especially, I believe it was the iPhone, I can't remember, 7 or 8 that had the fingerprint sensor on the front, the Touch ID. Nowadays we're wearing masks so much, so you know, you're constantly having to take it off to use Face ID, whereas fingerprint, you're good, right? So I do wish, and I don't understand why Apple didn't implement both, especially with COVID being a thing right now still, and we don't know how long it's going to be a thing, and we're all having to wear masks, and I can't see that completely going away anytime soon. So having a fingerprint scanner was nice, and if you have an old phone, you have that. So that could be a huge benefit. Now, if the design, you like the square edges, if you are coming from an iPhone 11 or 12, honestly, it doesn't look any different. There's some different colors. The cameras now, depending on if you have like an 11, instead of going up and down, they're diagonal. They're a little bit better. Big deal? Probably not. Probably not a whole bunch. And of course, that's going to be up to you. But if design is your reason, I'd say no. You know, there's no big design that's been changed into 13 at all. So I wouldn't either. Let's talk about performance in general. If you are coming from an iPhone 10 series, so that is a 10, a 10R, a 10S, any of those, processor-wise and camera-wise, and that means, you know, anything even older than that. If you're looking at processor and camera abilities, yeah, I would say you're getting close. It's definitely time. But even processor-wise, right, from a 10 series, depending on what your usages are, maybe you're fine with it. I always say if you're fine with what you got, having something that's a little faster, you may not even notice it. Maybe you're running certain apps that aren't processor intensive. You literally use Mail, you use Safari, you use Maps, etc., etc. Are you going to notice a big difference? Probably not. You know, if you look at benchmark scores, they always push the envelope and show what it can do. It's like buying a brand new car that says this thing can go 400 kilometers an hour, but you're a person that never drives above 100. What does it matter? It doesn't matter, right? There are some people maybe that would utilize that or utilize the ability to get closer to that. Then that makes sense. But is it a big deal? Probably not. The other thing too is camera. Now on the 10 series and backwards, they did make some pretty significant changes. Now resolution in that didn't, so don't let the fact that that had a 12 megapixel and the 13 have a 12 megapixel be what changes your mind. You're like, it's the same camera. They're not the same cameras. So if you're using your iPhone for photography or videography, on a 10 and older, I would say it may be worth an upgrade, because if you go out and buy or look at just a consumer camera nowadays, you can easily spend $1,000 on one or close to it, $700, $800 on one. And this is in your phone, which can give you a substantial increase in photo and video quality from a 10 series and backwards, especially a 10R and backwards, because they were single camera units, just one camera on the back, which means no ultra wide, no telephoto, and you didn't have a lot of difference. It was what it was. When you go to a Pro series or even a non-Pro series now, you're getting at least 2 cameras and 3 on the Pro. So you get a wider field of view as well as a zoom. So you get way more flexibility in your ability to take photos. Now, they will talk about ProRes on the iPhone 13 Pro, whatever. That is a feature I would say a very, very, very small margin of people will actually look at. If you are someone that needs ProRes, you'll know what it is already. You already know what it is, and you probably already know that the iPhone is something that you want. If you don't know what ProRes is, then don't let that technical jargon sway you into going to that, because you're not going to use it. Guaranteed, not going to use it. But the photo quality in general, low light performance should be better. Its ability to shoot faster should be better. So overall, a better camera. So if you're looking at a new phone because of camera, this could definitely be an option, especially from the 10 series. When you're looking at the 11 and 12 series, definitely better, but my wife has an iPhone 11. I have an iPhone 12. Is it a huge increase? Well, I don't know. I haven't seen it. And here's the other thing before we get talking a little bit further, is that if you were to go out and buy or want to buy an iPhone as of today, you probably won't be able to get one in your hands at least until October, if not November. Probably would be my guess, because if you try to order online, delivery is late October, maybe even creeping into November when you're watching this, or later. I don't know. So you got plenty of time to kind of think about it. And even here, we will be doing more reviews when we get our 13, basing it up against the 11, 12, because that's the phones that we have. And maybe a 10R. We do have a 10R still. So we may test those cameras, performance, video quality, etc., just to see if there's much of a noticeable difference. We'll see, because that could be important to you. Now, if you have an 11 and a 12, again, like we talked about before, form factor, not a big deal. The 11 and 12s, both, again, when you look at benchmarks, there's a significant difference between the 12 and the 11. They on paper, really do look like the 12 should be significantly faster. But in actual day-to-day operations, not much of a difference. My wife has 11, I have a 12, and I can give her my 12 and she could use it for an hour or two, and does she go back to her 11 and be like, oh, this is so slow? No. Does she notice a difference? No. Does she notice a difference in the camera or video quality? No, not at all. She loves her 11 Pro. I get her an upgrade usually every 2 to 3 years. She didn't want an upgrade this year, which means I'm gonna get the 13 because she's happy with what she's got and it does the job. Again, is performance a needed issue? Not nowadays, I don't think. Not that big of a deal. If you have an 11 and 12, honestly, unless the photography thing is something that's really big for you, that's probably the biggest change, I would think. And it's not, honestly, it's not even that big. So 11 and 12, hum and haw. Now, the one thing too that I would look at, and this is kind of just off the top of my head, iOS 15 is coming out today, sometime this afternoon for us, and we will definitely upgrade to it right away. And again, we'll have some videos on it as of tomorrow, hopefully. And for those of us that, or you, that have iPhone 12s, iPhone 11s, iPhone 10s, iPhone 8s, back and back and back to wherever it goes. I think 8s as far as it goes back. If you're considering moving to an iPhone 13 or maybe even an 11 or something because they're still for sale, save yourself some more money, especially if you're coming from like an 8 or something like that. Put iOS 15 on it and see how it runs. See what the performance is like, because a lot of operating system updates require more power from your phone. And you may upgrade and realize, oh, now it's a little sluggish. Now I'm not overly pleased with the performance of this phone anymore. We don't know, again, because we haven't received iOS 15 like many of you that aren't on the beta program. But we will, again, be testing it all the way back to a 10R to see how it feels, how it operates. And that could be a big thing. So I do recommend, maybe not necessarily the day it comes out, wait 24 hours or 48 hours to install it, because if there are any issues with it, Apple will pull it. And if there aren't, within 48 hours, then it should be good to go. But we don't know necessarily how an 8 or a 10 or an 11 will perform on it. 11s and 12s I think should be fine, but we don't know. And we should see if there's any additional features that are possibly only on the 13. So is the 13 a big upgrade for a lot of people? No, I really do think it's very marginal. If you have a 12, the majority of people probably have zero need to upgrade, right? Unless you're really camera specific. If you have an 11, the percentage gets a little more in regards to probably who should. Now, want and need are very different things, but an 11, you know, maybe 20 to 30% of you possibly. There's definitely no need for it. When you get into the 10s and under, I think you're getting close to, there's definitely features and performance issues that you'll have on those phones that you wouldn't have on the new ones. So then that doorway definitely opens up. But again, the 13 isn't your only option. The 12s as of now, I think you can still get them, and the 11s will be on sale right alongside the 13s. So definitely a couple things to keep in mind. Again, we're going to be upgrading our phones and iPads and Apple Watches and all that kind of stuff to the new operating systems when they come out, I believe today. And we will try to put out a video tomorrow, same time, on iOS 15 and possibly the following day on Apple Watch 8. All right, that's it for today. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that little notification bell so that you can see those videos. Because again, if you're looking at one of these new devices, we hopefully can show you how it operates on the old phones, and it'll run even better on the new one. All right, guys. See you tomorrow.